let's jump in. Welcome to Nerd Church as we officially enter our second season. Uh, when we tied up the epilogue from last season, you had just had some adventure on the high seas and had worked together very effectively to capture the uh, sort of rogue son or unacknowledged son of House Kieran, Hansa Hansa, who had basically set up a mobile lab to continue his research work in the supply chain of evil on a ship at sea. With the help of Aqua Taru, you attacked, got rid of his guards, captured him, and then scuttled the ship. When you turned him over to Maktu and the Yokogawai for interrogation. And knowing that there was a lot of heat on your names at this particular moment, you agreed to lay low in Chukip while the cell gathered intelligence and started to set some plans in motion to track the activity of House Kieran and learn more about this supply chain. Um, we are going to spend a little time first talking about what each of you have done as the plot has sort of taken a story beat of about 3 months at this point. So we're going to learn a little bit about what your characters have been doing during this 3 months. But the first thing I want to say is if you haven't done a long rest in D&D Beyond in a while, this would be a good time. You've gotten lots of those. And everyone can add 150 gold pieces to your inventory just for various work and projects you've been doing on behalf of the Yokogawai. So during this time, we're just going to assume that you have accumulated a little bit of walking around money. And we're going to start with Pando and Freya, because Pando and Freya have, sounds like, spent a lot of time together over the course of this 3 months, largely because each of them has been pursuing the coaching or mentoring or support of Maktu and other folks in the cell. So the routine that has started to develop is up early before the dawn. The three of you, and maybe at times Potham, who it sounds like was doing some calisthenics to stay in peak fit condition.
We're going to work out this morning.
Yep. Find yourselves outside of the city in the secluded training grounds that Maktu has sort of set out for himself on a sort of a small sunlit hill. By the way, this time, the reason I was joking about this is what I did on my summer vacation is this is really during the summer. So we came off last season, headed into late spring. So early summer is when we really get started here. And so picture really early summer mornings in a quiet stretch of forest, a little break in the trees where there's a low rising hill. This is where you've seen before Maktu does his blade dance. This is where he practices his art. And he had in the past invited you to join him, and so both Pando and Freya take him up on that. At the start of this, it is really just you observing and maybe doing a little of your own thing, but before long, he starts engaging you with specific practice drills, sort of a gruff line about if you're just going to stand around here, you might as well have something to do. And you find very quickly that while patient, Maktu is a relentless trainer, drilling you to perfection in techniques of hand-to-hand combat. Now, while Freya has experienced this kind of training in a noble house in your clans, you had your own sword master who kind of walked you through these. So your technique, while probably improved or honed a little bit or maybe refreshed, is a very different impact than it is for Pando, who is experiencing muscles she didn't know existed, who is discovering even just a way of thinking about her body and positioning and form that has never been considered before. Deep, deep soreness all the time. The rest for you in particular, Pando. The mornings are extra difficult because it takes you a half an hour just to get moving and loosened up, but because you're so sore from the day before.
I just kind of see you laying in bed and people are like, come on, it's time to go. And you're like, no.
I know, I was going to say,
today.
hey, come on, let's go get something to eat.
No.
You actually just hear a bear's growl.
Oh, yeah.
As she just transforms out of frustration.
Leave me.
Yeah.
I'll fight you.
In an interesting juxtaposition, the two of you also spend a fair amount of time together in the evenings, as the middle of the day becomes sort of rest time, stay out of the public view. But in the evenings, Mach 2 sends you out to do work on behalf of the Yokogawai, quiet work. And this is an opportunity for both of you, but in particular Freya, to practice blending in a little bit in this urban setting, learning how to maybe not perfectly disguise herself. She's a big silver dragonborn, but leveraging the masks that the Yokogawai has available, but also thinking about how to blend in with crowds, how to disappear into shadowy alleyways, how to make your way in different areas of the city, kind of learning the ebb and flow and the pulse of humanity, or elf-manity, that lives here. Mach 2 is deeply experienced in both of these areas, hand-to-hand combat and moving about this city in particular unseen, and he has a lot to share. And so he, over time, you can tell, is though he doesn't ever say it, you get a feeling that he is grateful for your consistent presence. You start to gather a picture of a man who has, though he is at the center of a few webs, has felt very alone for a very long time, and other than Wari Wari Hanzo, doesn't have a constant companion. So the two of you being around consistently every single day just over time starts to chip away at this gruff, cold facade. Doesn't like shatter him into a warm puppy, but you notice progress over the course of weeks and months. There are little moments of not necessarily a smile, but maybe a disarming or a relaxing of the guard around you. Pando, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about how you picture some of this time going by.
Sure.
What's on Pando's mind, where her focus is.
So, Pando has family there. And the events of the last several weeks have really shown her that she's probably going to not be in Jukip for very long after we all kind of make some decisions, and also that she may not see her family for a while. And so when she's not spending time with Freya and kind of developing herself there, she is staying with her family. She has siblings, parents, there's multiple generations that she is still close with. And then she's also spending time, and this is, not with like a regular cadence, but as often as she can, back at the temple where she was trained as a little girl. The temple that she has returned to several times. So in season 1, when she was not present, that's typically where she was. And just learning more about the magic of the Circle of the Druid, learning more about, nature and her connection with that. And she's come to learn that the priests, would they be in that?
Yeah, I think they would. I think in the
In the
Empire they're
lore.
probably referred to as monks,
Okay.
but not what we would in D&D parlance consider monks.
Sure.
They're druids,
Sure.
but this is a monastic tradition
Hmm.
in the Empire.
So the leaders and the teachers within that temple space, Pando is getting the sense that they know a little bit more about the breakdowns in the Empire than she originally thought that they may have, or just didn't think anybody knew since it was kind of new to her. And so that's really where she spent the most of her time. And then just as an aside, when she and Freya are spending that time together, it's really, yes, building Pando's brand new sense of physical strength and any kind of, amateur level still combat skills as she's learning from Freya. But to reciprocate, there is also a level of helping Freya hone her connection to her magic, and so it's reciprocal in that sense. And that's really how Pando has spent most of her time.
Nice. So, a couple things about that. I think while you are the least visible, or I guess you're the one person in this party whose description that's out there, like on the APB from the Empire, is the least likely to match up to you, because there's a whole lot of female elves running around. However, I think out of a dearth of caution, that'd be the opposite. Right? Is it
Breath of
Abundance.
abundance of caution.
Yeah, dearth
Right.
is not a lot. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a lack of caution. Okay. Anyway, I think some of the sort of stealth practice that Freya is engaged in is about helping you get to and from where you want to be. So you want to spend
That's
time
great.
with your family, but you all collectively agree you shouldn't just be marching down the city streets and you keep waving at everybody you know. So I think that's part of the task that Mach 2 sets to Freya as well, is make sure she can go do these things, but do them on the sly. Can visit the temple, but need to throw that mask on from time to time, or maybe you need to move at night, or you need to have some conversations with your family about how they talk about your time together, that sort of thing. We're going to do just one little scene, I think, from this downtime too. And this is a time when...
Just before that,
Yeah.
a dearth is scarcity that makes dear.
Yeah. So not the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
The opposite of the word.
Specifically famine in inadequate supply or lack of.
I like it.
Okay.
So just over 2 months into this sort of routine that you've settled into, and during one of your early morning practice sessions with Mach 2, Freya is sort of down the hill to the side, taking a break, having just finished a pretty intense sparring session. Perhaps Potom is doing a plank position somewhere.
I'm just there in the background, like, I like to stay fit.
He's got some kettlebells.
The one thing that I do for myself.
Like, is it down? I actually like to imagine that it's just down dog all the time. That's-
But except it's like trying to fold a bowling ball in half.
And
Yeah.
and there's little grunts every once in a while.
he shows up to the glade, goes into down dog, stays there for 45 minutes, and if you're not sure it's him, it just looks like a boulder.
Just as you guys are getting ready for your 5-mile run, he's like, okay, back to it.
Freya is also like, hey, Potom, come here. We should learn. You should get more comfortable. If I lift you all the way up over my head, we can see things further away. So we're practicing.
I like
we're
this.
practicing
There we
that.
go.
Potom as the
Yes.
kettlebell.
Yeah.
Whoa!
I'm here for that, for sure. So
that's
so this
We're
little
doing
comic
that.
relief scene is happening off to the side
Mhm.
of your vignette. But I think this is one of those moments where the hard-edged presentation from Mach 2 really cracks. And it's you that's there in that moment to catch it. And there's a reason for that. So as you, in the midst of a sparring match, raise your shield at just the right moment and deflect one of his blows with the practice stick, he pauses for a moment and his breath catches, and you see that his eyes are glistening in the morning sun. And he says, I'm sorry, sometimes you just look so very much like her. And he turns away quickly, starts busying himself with resettling the armor padding that he's wearing. You say anything?
Who's first?
He takes a long, deep breath, kind of looks over to see if anyone else is paying attention, and then he steps a little closer and he says quietly, Selendria was our daughter. She's a wild and free-spirited child who loved with abandon. She brought a lot of joy to our home, and for a blissful season she lifted me above the pettiness and spite of the purebloods in the capital. My wife, Sinter, was born of a house of minor noble status, but she earned the scorn of her family and her social circles by attaching herself to a half-breed of no consequence, like me. I worked night and day, beyond my limits, just trying to prove that I was worthy of her. Earning position, but never respect. In my foolish youth, I couldn't see, but she never needed me to prove myself. To Sinter, I was enough, but I could not let go, believing she deserved more. Anyway, it was only when Selendria came into our lives that the tight knot in my heart loosened for the first time. I immersed myself in the warm glow of family, and for a few blessed decades, I allowed myself to believe that things might change. Selendria's coming of age proved the fallacy of my hope. Sinter's family arranged a betrothal that would tie them to a major noble house. A coup for the family that Sinter hoped might change our black sheep status. Selendria, too, was full of hope. Her introduction to the young man was awkward but sweet, and my girl had a spirit that failed to imagine duplicity. I was not allowed to attend the ceremony, which galled us, but by then I was accustomed to my second-class status. We didn't see or hear from our daughter for 3 weeks after she moved into her new manor home. When Sinter pressed for a visit, we were rebuffed. She played the proper noble for months more, sending messages and notes, until one day I snapped and marched both of us over to the manor and demanded entry. I wanted to see my daughter. The smirking bastard who took our girl invited us in and escorted us into the kitchens, where we found Selendria chained like a dog. At this he pauses and breathes for a moment through his obvious rage. She was chained and scrubbing pots and pans, underfed, dirty, with bruises on her face. She didn't even look up until her mother cried her name. When she did, her eyes were full of terror. Her husband struck her then, reminding her to recall her place. I was unarmed, but I threw myself at him, only to be struck down from behind by a house guard I had not seen following us. When I came to, Cinter was dabbing my face with a cloth. Her panicked sobs were drawing upturned eyebrows as we sat sprawled in the street outside the manor. And he, standing behind armed guards, the man who stole my daughter, looked down his nose at me and said, "Trash. In the gutter where you belong. Did your slumming wife really believe her family could hide your weak blood in our arrangement? I discovered the filthy truth only days after the ceremony, and the priest of the dawn annulled that sham in a trice. As penance, we have decided that rather than a wife, your family has gifted us a servant. So far, I'm pleased. She is a hard worker, and now that she's been broken, she is eager to please. You will never come here again," he said. "You will never see her again," he told me. "If you wish her to live, you will stand up and walk away and not look back." My rage overcame my better sense, but Cinter pulled me away before I could do worse. We were helpless. All my strength and skill with a blade, meaningless. Cinter's friends and family were disinclined to help. Politically awkward, they said. For my wife, it was a slow decline. She stopped talking, stopped eating, wandered the city streets at strange hours. For me, my rage grew cold and consumed me, to the point where I didn't even see Cinter as she withered. All my energy was poured into finding some way to hurt them. Until one day, the blades found the body of my wife cold and stiff, curled up against the wall of the manor where Selendria was still captive. I was not brave enough to die with her. I fled deeper into my anger, honed it to a razor's edge. I disappeared myself from the capital, started a new life here with a new identity. I made allies, built resources, carved out access for my revenge. I never spent the time to prepare Selendria with the skills that you now practice. I'm not sure that if I had, it would have saved her, trapped in that den of vile intent. But through the Yokogawa, and perhaps with your help, I will live to see my vengeance on him, on them, on all of it. I'm going to burn it down, Pando. Pando, you get to decide to take either the Sentinel or the Shieldmaster feat as a benefit of your work with Moktu over these months. You can feel free to read up on them both a little bit, but to give you a sense, Sentinel is a skill set that allows you to sort of pin enemies in place. So when you're engaged with an enemy in hand-to-hand combat, Sentinel lets you prevent them from moving away. Or the Shieldmaster feat basically makes you a lot harder to hit if you have a shield in your hand. And I believe also lets you protect others around you, although I'll have to look back and read about that. But I'll let you decide what direction your training took you and what you chose to focus on. But to me, those felt like the most likely combat related things you would do. Like, I didn't really see Pando swinging a sword, bashing things with a club. But I think because of the echoes of his daughter that Moktu saw in you, he has been focusing this time on training you to protect yourself and protect the people around you.
I would say that after that conversation, the panda walks up to him, she gives him a hug, and she says, "We should get back to practice."
That's he's grateful in that moment. I think for Maktu, this was a bit of like lancing a boil kind of a thing. This had to come out, but as soon as it's out, he regrets letting it out. And so the ability to step back into the comfortable routine is good for him. Freya, a lot of your time, we've talked about how you've been spending it, but a lot of your time in the evenings has been spent sometimes side by side with Maktu, but often executing instructions given to you by Maktu. So the way he's been training you in this work has really been about you running a lot of errands, which I think at first was probably very frustrating to Freya, because it was hard to see at the start what the value of this was. It wasn't obviously practice. So running across town to pick up a package, tailing somebody of really no importance, supporting another Yoko Gawai member as they executed a mission, putting you in a very subservient role on a team. All of this probably stuck in your craw from time to time. But I think over the course of a few months, you started to feel more comfortable in the streets. Not to the point where you would ever walk around in broad daylight without one of the masks on, but where your familiarity with Chukip had reached a point where you felt like you could get out of a scrape if you needed to. You knew which alleys led to blind dead ends and which had easy access to roofs and some of those kinds of things. And you also start to notice a shift in the requests that you're given. It's about the middle of the summer, I think, when you're asked to take on your first B&E. And you enter a merchant's home through a second-story window with the support of young Tambu. And instead of just playing lookout, you are the one instructed to enter and gather and return with the information. And you notice, in a different way but similar to Pando's experience with the combat training, that Maktu it's more obvious to you that he believes in your skill set here. He's not putting safety nets up for you anymore. Talk to me a little bit about how you think Freya would feel, respond to some of these sorts of errands and missions. It's pretty different from what she really has ever done, right? Stand on a battlefield, straight up combat, like all the shady stuff.
As far as the shady stuff goes, well, as far as the actual errands go and things like that, there was a little bit like, I want to move on, what is this for? But she's pretty easygoing about that stuff too, and being the youngest of and having 3 older brothers and having all of that and sort of being in this training sort of mode always. She's used to being a student. And so, she definitely sees the value in that. But there's so much more confidence. There's so, just starting to feel like, it goes along with, she needed a break. Man, she needed a break because literally got dumped off of this ship that she was kidnapped on, or well, escaped from it and swam to shore, and then was in this elven city and trying to figure out and getting her papers, and then, but having come from this like massive conflict, with her whole family. She just needed time to kind of process that and really feeling like a fish out of water everywhere that she was. Now with this, gaining confidence with being able to move around the city, knowing that this can really complement, she's starting to really come into her own and feel good about that. And organizing her thoughts too, just about what happened to her in her clan, and what, I think she really comes to a point where she's like, you know what, I'm gonna be here for a while, and this is good because I need to be prepared when I go back. And and recognizing that working with the Yokogawa and our little group here too has just been really good. To give her the things that she really wants, the skills that she wants to have, and the things that she wants to know, if she is going to go back or going to figure out a strategy at some point for what she's going to do, back with her family. So she reflects a lot on her mother too during this time, because she has just vague recollections of her mother, but she feels like there's some kind of connection still that's there that isn't, she always kind of wonders what happened or exactly where her mother is, or if her mother is dead, or there's that, there's sort of that whole element. So she's able to kind of relax and think about those things too.
Nice. So jumping ahead to late summer, there is an evening when Pando is away at the temple, and Moktu asks you to meet him after dark in the safe house. And it's just the two of you. He looks at you as you arrive, and he says, I'm glad you've come. Freya, your contributions to the cell have been significant this summer. I know that at the start it may not have felt that way, but you have changed the landscape for us and allowed us to access information and resources that we could not. I say that, of course, to say that I have need of your help yet again tonight. An Imperial courier arrived on the docks just an hour ago. We need to know where their message is being delivered, and, if possible, the contents of that message, without disrupting the flow of information. We cannot let them become aware that we are aware. I want to ask you to tail them and report back, without being noticed, of course. Your growing skill has drawn the notice of one of our most capable. You know Aqua. She has set you a challenge to test your mettle on tonight's mission. She suggests that instead of going out with the mask, she believes you are ready to complete this mission in your own skin. This makes me anxious, to be clear, but I trust her instincts. In the end, it's up to you.
Could I take the mask along, just in case?
He's leaving it up to you to decide, but after that, with some brief instructions, he turns and departs. So you are left in the safe house with access to masks if you want, or not. Here's what you know. We're going to do this as a skill challenge, which means you'll do a series of checks, and we're going to see if you can put together enough successes before you have too many failures. at each step of the skill check, I'm gonna tell you kind of what the objective is, and you're gonna tell me how you think Freya would approach it based on her growing skill set, and then I'll tell you what you'll need to roll based on how you describe what Freya would do.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is head to the docks. When you get to the docks, your goal is going to be to find some kind of concealment and to catch sight of this courier as they depart the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So first, are you taking the mask or not?
Does it count for my challenge with Aqua if I take it and don't use it?
You don't know. Aqua's not here.
I don't know. That is a good question. Okay, I'm going without the mask.
Okay. All right, so you head to the docks. Tell me what you believe Freya would do when she arrived at the docks. It is, and as a reminder, it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's approaching dawn.
I'm going to kind of sneak around the back of Nell's office. Back around the office there to just kind of see what I can see, just slightly concealed behind the building there at first, and just kind of try to check out, see if I can see the courier.
Okay. Let me ask one more question, because I think over the course of your time this summer, this would have been called into question. Are you armored?
No, I'm unarmored.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You don't wear armor.
I don't wear armor. Yeah, I don't wear armor.
She is armor.
Is
Yeah.
literally is armor. Yeah.
I do have I do have my greatsword with me.
Okay. So you're armed.
Armed. I'm
Okay.
armed, not armored.
Got it. Okay. Very good. Well, so then first and foremost, we're just going to make a straight up stealth check for you to find some concealment behind Nell's office in a place that gives you line of sight to the Imperial courier ship. The Imperial courier ship is obvious. You all have seen
Yeah.
these before. They come through, not frequently, but from time to time. They are sleek, very well-made ships, but small, meant for just a very small crew. And I'll just remind everybody that the Imperial couriers you have come to know are extraordinarily skilled and also very dangerous. They are essentially the Imperial postmen, but they're like hardcore. They have not only
Hardcore postman.
they're hardcore postmen. They're not only skilled combatants, but they also have magic, and most people know you don't mess with a courier. So these are some background information for you. But anyway, let's make your stealth check as you try to hide behind Nell's office.
7.
Maybe you gotta.
Yeah,
use your
maybe
new die.
I'm supposed to roll my die.
A 7.
Yeah.
Okay. So this you duck behind Nell's office and find a sort of a shady alcove to hide in. But unfortunately, the shadows do not help you in this case, because they conceal a tin bucket that is sitting on the ground back there, which you accidentally kick, making a loud rattling noise. And 2 or 3 of the late night dock workers turn and look. They don't see you, but they see that something is back behind Nell's office, which forces you to reposition yourself in a different spot, less ideal to being able to observe the courier when they depart. So now I'm going to ask you to make a perception check with disadvantage.
Perception check. Okay, I don't have a 17. What's that?
9
9.
plus.
What's your
I don't have
perception?
a-
Plus 0?
Plus 0.
Okay. It's not until the courier is well up the road that you get a sense that maybe you've missed them. And racing up into the alleyways, you just spot the very obvious uniform of the courier in the early dawn, sort of pre-dawn glow, making their way up the road towards the mercantile district. And now you are racing to catch up. So the next phase of this is going to be, your objective here is to track this courier unobserved as they are in transit through the mercantile district. It is fairly obvious to you already that they are headed for the noble district. That sort of was implied in Mach 2's instructions. So you have a sense, at least, of where they're headed, because there's only one path up to the noble district. But how do you think Freya would approach this? Remain unobserved, but follow this courier.
So, she is unarmored. So a good advantage that she does have is without the armor, she's not like making a lot of clunking armor sounds too in general. And what she's also learned is that, the claws on her feet and everything are, she's been able to file them down a little bit as she's been going. So
She's got a pedicure.
she's got a pedicure. So she's
Stealth
not
pedicure.
so
I love it.
so clack clacky on the ground as she goes, and that is one thing also that she's learned a lot about, just being more in charge of her physical form and how she, how she steps, how she, doesn't, she was just loud and proud all the time. So how she learns how to make herself smaller, just kind of in general. So she's sneaking up through doorways. As soon as she can see that the courier's a little bit further up, she'll dash up to another doorway. I don't know how it looks, if there's plants along the side or anything like that that she's doing, but she's using a tactic more of kind of watching and letting them get a little bit ahead and then kind of hurrying up to another spot.
Okay.
That's on there.
Fair. So the approach you're taking is you're going to tail your target, you're going to stay at ground level, and you're going to move up, conceal, wait, move up, conceal, wait.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Then we're going to make some additional checks. So the first check we're going to make is, I'm going to call it an investigation check. And the goal here is for you to, using your fairly now well-mapped understanding of the city streets, you're going to be thinking ahead and trying to map out a route, not the route the courier is going to take necessarily, but a route that gives you these opportunities to duck in and hide. It's just before dawn, so it's not like there's a bunch of crowds out here that you can just duck into, and frankly, without the mask, that wouldn't go well for you anyway. So there's not a lot of people out, but there are some people out. There are some early morning merchants pulling carts. There are maybe bakers on their way to work, these kinds of things. So you're going to make an investigation check to think in advance about the places where you could duck inside, businesses that you know will be closed, homes that have big decorative potted plants out front, that sort of thing. So an investigation check is the first check for this round.
7.
Okay.
Why? I can't even roll over a 10 here.
It's tough.
It's terrible.
It's a tough
Terrible.
start. So here's what I think happens. The route you have mapped out in your head is a good one. Unfortunately, that's not the direction the courier goes. And so very quickly you're forced to abandon this plan that you thought would give you so much cover, and instead are racing in the open more often than you would like to keep an eye on the courier. And so I'm going to ask you to make a choice between keeping the courier in sight or keeping yourself out of sight. Which is going to be Freya's priority in this moment of panic?
Or could she change tactics slightly here?
Maybe pitch it to me.
she knows the rooftops fairly well. So if she finds a place where she could climb up, could she go up to the rooftops, just to keep a bit of an eye on the courier a little bit better, have a better bird's eye view?
Yes. I'm still, though, as you make your way to the rooftop, I'm still going to
Okay.
ask you to. There has to be a penalty for your bad roll. So the penalty is I'm forcing you to trade off between two objectives. Moving to the rooftops is a great idea, and you can
Okay.
do it. But as you try to make your way up to the rooftop, are you rushing so that you can keep eye on the courier, or are you trying to make your way up to the rooftops in a stealthy way? You can't do both.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make my way up to the rooftop in a stealthy way.
Okay.
Hoping that once I get up there, I can see a little bit better.
All right, make an athletics check, please.
Okay.
To get
This one
up
at
to the
least I get a
rooftop.
+4 on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 23.
Okay, excellent. With that very good roll, you actually make it up to the rooftops very quickly. And again, this is where your physical strength comes into play in a really positive way, because you're able to move quietly and actually make your way onto the roof without one of the easy access points that maybe a Tonbu would have used. You just go, well, there's a wall, I'll climb it, and up you go. The good news is, because you make it up there quickly, you can still just see on the edge of your view the courier moving forward. They have made it to the edge of the mercantile at this point and are about to turn the corner and make their way up the kind of curving pathway further up the cliff to the Noble District. From the position you're currently in, you can either scale the cliff wall to essentially cut off, or to get ahead if you scale the wall fast enough, or you can pursue in stealth from a distance, but there is no cover on the kind of curving path up, so you will literally need to stay far enough away so that you're outside the curve of the, or inside the curve, I should say, of the path, which means peeking and then waiting and peeking and then waiting. And obviously you would be at full exposure to any blades or anyone walking down that path. So those are the options you have in front of you.
No, I'm gonna scale the cliff.
Okay. Then the first thing I would like you to do is make another athletics check.
No whammies. And it's 14.
14. Okay. 14 is enough. It's not. It is a success, but it is not going to give you an advantage. So you scale the cliff. It's not easy, intentionally so, and it is also dark. But you do make your way to the top and kind of pull yourself over the lip of the cliff, and then make your way in between some of the walled estates to the street, or the edge of the street, the lights of the street lights. Just in time as you see the courier come up around the corner, and they walk past you. You're, again, far enough away that we don't even need a stealth check here. They're not looking around. But they do pass you. So you didn't really get the drop on them or get out ahead of them, but you do make it up and still have them in sight. So the last set of checks we're going to do here are the hardest, which is you're now in the Noble District, a place fairly well patrolled by blades at all hours. No randoms walk around up here, except for occasionally the servants of these manor houses, and it's pre-dawn. So other than this courier, it's pretty much empty out here except for blade patrols.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is going to be to tell me how you track this courier through if you picture this district, it's like a very wealthy gated community. And you're trespassing. So
I've got a hoodie on.
yeah, it's gonna go great. So tell me how Freya would approach this.
So you know, oh gosh, I mean, it's going to have to be a situation again of kind of, as she was doing down in the street, sort of hurry a little ahead and hide, but also, well, let me think here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no dashing here. Just sort of walking slowly and casually.
Okay.
It doesn't want to take into so yeah, I'm going to change on this. Doesn't want the whole thing of like somebody to be able to see out of the corner of their eye and see some kind of like quick movement on there. So she's just sort of calmly and casually walking along in the shadows, keeping to the side. Just sort of stopping at certain points if there seems to be any activity around, just sort of holding off for a moment in the shadows, but walking sort of steadily and calmly on.
Okay. All right, we're going to do 2 quick checks then. The first check I'm going to ask for is a perception check, because in order to do what you're describing well, you're going to need to have your head on a swivel for blade patrols and for what this courier is doing. Okay, that's not great.
No, that's pretty bad.
So I think what happens here is the tension starts to mount for Freya. This is hostile territory.
Mm-hmm.
This is outside the scope of some of these little missions and errands, right? And she's starting to imagine all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And as that's happening, totally misses a pair of blades that are about to turn the corner. You notice just in time, before they see you, to step out further away out of the circles, the pools of light from these different magical street lamps in here, and essentially throw yourself into a topiary bush. I want you to roll a stealth check at disadvantage, please.
5. Yeah, 5.
Okay. So the good news is that the blades don't turn in your direction, and so you are not spotted. The bad news is that the noise of you rustling into this topiary bush to hide causes the courier to turn and look over their shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happens and they don't see anybody there, they increase their pace substantially and disappear out of your sight. I'm going to give you one last roll to see if you can salvage this, which we're going to call this a perception check. Basically, the only opportunity you have yet to succeed in this mission is to walk in the direction you saw the courier go and try to pick up some trail or some clue as to where they would have gone. At this point, you're looking for footprints or something, right? So I'm just going to tell you, this is a really high DC. It's going to be a tough one. I'll let you use perception or survival.
I'll use survival.
Okay.
13.
Okay. So you trail the direction that you think the courier went, and it doesn't take more than 5 minutes before you realize that you have failed here. The courier, once alerted, was too slippery. They're too skilled to leave obvious tracks. And feeling kind of defeated, you duck into another sort of hedge and sit down and not quite mope, but kind of like, shit. Like, this sucks. And it is just about that moment that you feel a light hand on your shoulder, and the whispered voice of Aquataru in your ear says, "It was a good effort, but
Not good enough.
this time perhaps we set the task too high or unlucky. Regardless, your skills have improved dramatically, and I am proud of the work you have put in. And we will not come away from this day unrewarded." And at that moment, she sets a packet into your hand that is a small parcel of messages wrapped up in paper and sealed on the outside with the wax imperial sigil. And she says, "We'll keep this between us. Be careful on your climb down." And then she disappears into the night.
She's so cool.
She's very cool.
Thank God. Thank God for Aqua.
And here's a
She's-
signed copy of my book, Hiding from Yourself.
So, Freya, two things. First, do you open the packet of messages?
Yeah, it's sealed.
It is.
I'm not going to open it.
Okay. Very good. When you return to Moktu, which you do successfully, he is pleasantly surprised at your success and takes the packet and immediately cracks the seal and starts flipping through the messages. And after a moment, his eyebrows raise and he pulls one message out of the pile and throws it on the desk. And he says, "You might find this interesting." And then goes back to his reading. The message that he's thrown to you is it's essentially a set of receipts. And though it is vaguely described, something catches your eye immediately because it mentions your home city by name, the seat of your clan's power. These receipts outline payments of support made to a Dragonborn clan, specifically earmarked for weapons and supplies. This is, while not clear evidence that would hold up in a court, is clear enough for you that a noble house in this town is providing financial support to the ongoing clan war. And the clan receiving support is based in your hometown. What is the name of your home city, by the way?
Oh, I can tell you the name of my clan immediately. It's the clan name is Rogar's clan. So it's Rogar's clan because that's my father's name. So the clan name changes along with who the leader is. So it's Rogar clan right now.
I can't wait for it to be Freya.
And
So I don't need a
believe
top of
that-
your, I don't need a top of your head answer, but I want you to think about what the name of
Yeah.
that city is,
Okay.
because I wanted to put that into canon, but I thought that would be a good thing for you to decide. So let me know when you think of what the name of that
Okay.
Boston.
city is. It's
Boston.
called Boston.
It's called Fond du Lac.
Yeah. It's pretty
It's
good.
very cold there.
And Freya, your reward for all of this training is a custom feat that I have created for
Ooh.
you, which
I clearly didn't ask for cool enough stuff in my.
you'll see. It's maybe offset for you. So I don't remember how to add a custom feat for you. How do I do this? How do I give you a feat? Feat. Oh, here, manage feats.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So the feat that you have received is called Urban Camouflage, and you can read about that. If you click on it, you will see it says your experience enables you to move readily or to more readily blend into urban environments, vanishing into crowds and shady alleyways. When completing a stealth check in an urban environment, roll at advantage.
Nice.
I like it.
Okay.
So you will now see that in your features and traits. I didn't do all the. I'll have to play with how I built this in D&D Beyond, because when you click on your feats, it just says Urban Camouflage, and that cool little description doesn't show up beneath it. You have to click on it to read it. So I'll play
Okay.
with that later. But anyway, but it's in there now. So all right. So Potom.
Hmm.
You have been laser focused really for a while, even before the epilogue. on pursuing this supply chain of evil. And so, as soon as Hansa Hansa was dropped off at the safe house, and Mach 2 started to take charge, I imagine Potom sort of stuck his foot in the door as it was closing, so to speak, conversationally, and demanded active participation in whatever was going to go down here.
Sounds very much like him. You don't even know what to ask. You don't even know what you're dealing with here.
So I think Mach 2 begrudgingly accepts that early on, and over the course of the first week or so, the two of you put your heads together and discuss a strategy for how you will approach this. From your side, bringing the technical expertise to identify what do you need to know, what do you need to understand, what might Hansa Hansa need to be able to communicate back in order to remain uncompromised in the view of other people in the supply chain. And from Mach 2's perspective, this is a man with a fair amount of experience compelling certain behavior in others, let's say. And so his mind is focused on the psychological warfare that is about to be focused on Hansa Hansa. Bottom line is you need to do one of two things, and the preferred path is the harder one. So the easier path would be to just get rid of Hansa Hansa and try to pretend that he's still doing stuff. But pretending to be someone when you can't visually be in front of this portal, the facade sounds really difficult, right? The alternative is to make him a willing collaborator in this process, to continue to do what he has been asked to do to fulfill the expectations of the other links in this chain, without giving away the fact that he is no longer helping or that he's sharing information with you. And that's going to be tough. Talk to me about how you think Potom would approach this sort of strategy with Mach 2. What do you think the objectives would look like? Where is your energy and expertise going to come into play?
So, I guess while I am thinking of this interrogation, the scene from The Dark Knight where Rachel's in the room with the accountant and Harvey is just beyond the glass and she is running in and out of the room. Like, I guess I kind of saw Potom as the guy who's sitting behind the glass, who is like, wait a minute, what about that? Like, every time that there's a like sort of a counter where Mach 2 isn't sure where to go to next, Potom is there as the strategist of being like, okay, well now this is what we ask him. And so I guess I kind of saw, again, that Potom never really, like, he understands how the interrogation goes, but he doesn't want to be in there getting the answers.
Got it.
That if it has to turn dirty, that he is naive to that. Like, he knows that it's happening. He knows how the sausage is made, but
right.
He's not there making it.
Fair.
Just controlling the recipe.
I think pretty quickly a good cop, bad cop dynamic starts to appear where Potom's not around a lot, but there is a sense for Hansa Hansa that a like-minded expert somewhere is aware of what's going on. Mach 2 is very comfortable playing bad cop. He's here for it. He's got bad cop all day long.
He's all bad cop.
Yeah, he's all bad cop. And he's coming in and applying some pretty not subtle threats to Hansa Hansa early in this process. And this is where the project that you shared with me you wanted to work on also starts to weave into the longer term strategy. So describe for the group, if you would, the project that you wanted to work on and how that sort of fits in, because eventually that's the end game of this strategy, right? What you need Hansa Hansa to do. So talk about the project,
Sure. We're talking about the
device.
yeah. Well, so ultimately, would like to know where the portal leads to, and that eventually we're going to have to pass something through that portal. And to make it work to our advantage is developing a long-range tracking device. We can send it through with. I would like to give them what they're looking for so that the portal remains open and that we can keep passing stuff, but I don't want to give them a working device per se. I would like them to give them something that works for a moment and then is overloaded and fried to the point that they can't replicate it, but is, I mean, again, works for the moment. Like I would imagine. I keep on wanting to go to like an earlier prototype, but I don't want to lead them in a way that
Like you
whoever is
remove
on the
one
other
thing.
side would be able to be like, oh, well, all you have to do is this and this, and then all of a sudden they have a working cell. So something that works for a moment is overloaded, but then they end up eventually keeping because it worked, but is our long-range tracking device.
Excellent. So Mach 2 aligns behind this idea pretty quickly, but admits that he doesn't have the expertise to do what it is you're trying to do.
Yes,
Obviously.
that's where I come in.
Yep. But pretty quickly, you also are reminded that you have access to another expert who can help, which is your, we're not going to say friend, but is your acquaintance, Rotu Zenta, who is tucked away above the dirty wharfside bar. And you begin to engage in a sort of a collaborative project with him, which costs you some money because there's a lot of materials needed here. So I am going to ask that you sacrifice 50 gold pieces of the 150 that you accumulated over the course of this. But because of the fact that you did a lot of this work collaboratively, it costs you a lot less. He's able to basically fill in the gaps to some of the artificer work that you're doing, infusing enchantments in certain places, helping you understand how aspects of this magic work. And you learn a lot along the way, which is really useful. In order to buy you the time to do what needs to be done and to help give you the on-ramp to convince Hansa Hansa to do what needs to be done, Mach 2 suggests a strategy that makes sense and seems to work, which is that for the first few weeks of the summer, Hansa Hansa is ill. And this has happened before he gets a confession out of Hansa Hansa that there have been times in his work where he was bedridden or unable to make it to the portal, and though communication is still demanded, there's a precedent for this. And so for 2 weeks, Hansa Hansa is falsely bedridden and unable to show face in front of the portal. So instead he leaves a note within reach of the portal so that when it opens, a hand comes through and takes this note, moving the work forward in some ways, but largely just making a temporary excuse for why he's not face to face. When that happens, you are always there, observing in silence from the side to gather any clues or details about who might be on the other side. And all that you manage to gather is that it is a slender elven hand. But
Doesn't
eventually,
use lotion.
yeah,
Use
well
lotion.
moisturized. But over time, you do manage, Mach 2 specifically manages to secure Hansa Hansa's cooperation. Initially with threats, but also a subtle and slow working charm spell that he applies through daily applications of a potion mixed into Hansa Hansa's food. I've never seen a working like this before, but Ruto Zenta isn't surprised when you describe it to him. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
He doesn't come right out and say it's his, but when you bring it up in casual conversation, he's like, "Oh, interesting." He's not a super subtle dude. But over the course of this 2 weeks, Hansa Hansa's attitude changes in a dramatic way to the point where he is friendly with Maktu, and no threats are required. And he starts working a little, not quite industriously, but working in the open to support your work. I would imagine that once this really gets back into a flow, there are almost weekly drops expected for Hansa Hansa. Either he's receiving something or he's sending something on. And the tricky part, but that Maktu manages to take care of, is intercepting the packages that come in on ships. But now you know what to look for. And so that interception is managed effectively. You both know this isn't going to last forever, because the ship that was out at sea is not coming back. It's not sending messages. There's no check-in happening. So you're trying to make as much progress as you can, as quickly as you can. And what that means is that Potom almost never leaves the sort of slapdash workbench that is set up for him in the safe house. You spend time fine-tuning each prototype that comes in, making adjustments, and you fall back on what a long time ago was one of the most frustrating times of your life, but now provides a really great opportunity. Back when you were working in the Great Library, in the early stages of this research, you and your research partner spent more than a year pursuing what you thought at the time was an incredible breakthrough, only to find out 18 months in that it was a total dead-end idea. It had a lot of promise, and all your initial experiments suggested that this was going to be the thing to finally create stability in the power source. And it wasn't. It was just a total waste of 18 months. And at the time, you were bitterly frustrated, and in fact, trashed a lot of the prototypes that you had built in a fit of pick
Angry
and
Potom.
rage. But those notes, the notes about that failure, were some of the notes that escaped with you when you fled. And so you are very confident that no one else knows, other than your now deceased partner, that this is the case. And so over the course of about 6 weeks, you rebuild this fallacy of design, starting to incorporate these little adjustments, giving Hansa Hansa credit for this interesting idea that has so much merit that you know will eventually lead to nothing. 8 adjusted prototypes in, you hit the evening where you and Maktu agree it's time for the riskiest step, where Hansa Hansa will pass the tracer device through the portal. I'm going to ask you to make just one roll here.
Okay.
And
nothing.
it is going to be a proficiency roll, whatever roll you would make to create something as an artificer.
Oh, so like just my intelligence check.
Intelligence, but with proficiency added in. This is to see how cleverly you can conceal this device into the greater housing, because the play you've decided to make here is the device that you and Ruto Zenta create is very similar to the previous tracking device, but instead of a coin, there is essentially a trinket. It's not a charm, let's say, but it's just an interesting little twist of gold filigree that, when attached to the cage, could look as if it was a part of the design, but when your you've got a cantrip trap built into this basically, where it will, after a certain length of time, the magic will degrade and this thing will fall off. And as soon as it does, it acts the same as that coin that we talked about before, where there's a glamour on it that will entrance someone into picking it up and keeping it with them. This roll is to see how well you integrate it into the design, so it doesn't look like an obvious bolt-on.
Okay. Which. Well, oh yeah. 26.
Nice, yeah. Flawless. In fact, to the point where Hansa, who works on this prototype with you, can't even spot it. You ask him to point it out, and he searches and searches for an hour, and he's like, I don't know. He's convinced that you're messing with him. And so on that 8th week, he passes the prototype through, and you and Mach 2 agree that this will be the last thing passed through the portal. And you start to decide, you start to discuss how this storyline will be tied up through the portal. In other words, before it is discovered that the ship has been sunk, how you will tie up this loose end narratively with whoever is on the other side of the portal. It is proposed that Hansa's death will be faked.
We could just throw the mirror into the ocean.
This is an idea with merit.
Goes hand in hand with the sinking ship. And they get a little wet the next time that they go to look for something.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say, or we could not fake his death. And just,
Well, so interestingly, you have a conversation with Mach 2 about this, and then the next time you come back to the safe house, the portal and Hansa are both gone. And it is never brought up again. So you don't know what the choice was that was eventually made or how this was managed. But you do know that the portal and Hansa, right about week 9, just after you come back to the safe house to get to work, it's all cleaned up and gone. And you can ask Mach 2 about it if you want, but he doesn't offer.
And I got what I want.
Yeah.
Speaking
of what you want,
the journals are still there. Right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Those are in your possession.
Oh, okay.
He's never taken those away. But speaking of what you want, you also get a homebrew feat.
Oh, hooray!
Which I am going to add right now, which I have named Long Range Probes.
Sweet.
long range,
Yep.
deeply penetrating.
The tender extender.
I initially.
Oh my
where is
goodness,
it?
love it. Oh.
I created it, but it's not showing up. Unavailable feats? That wouldn't be right. Maybe I have to refresh. Let's see. I did create this in D&D Beyond, but I know I don't see it. So hopefully I didn't accidentally put a restriction on it, but I don't think I did. Long range probes. Yeah, it's in here. Okay. Well, then why can't I give it to you? I'll figure it out. Okay. I'm going to pause us for just a moment. Okay, so we're back. The long range probes feat reads as follows. You learn to build magically empowered tiny items that constantly transmit their location to you. Here's how they operate. Outside a range of 500 miles, the signal is weak, requiring a successful perception check, DC 15, which you can make once a day. With a success, the guidance provided at that range is simply a cardinal direction. You just got to have a sense of which way to go. Inside of 500 miles, but further out than a mile, so 1 to 499 miles, the sensor will display a clear direction and will grow warmer as the distance closes. And inside of 1 mile, it operates exactly like the locate object spell.
Okay.
I'll put some fine details into this, but the construction of these will require some time and money. You can only have one operating at a given time.
Okay.
But that's what this is going to look like. Somehow I'll figure out why I can't show it to you. Okay. Air. Air, unlike the other folks, I'm not going to start with a description of what you're up to. I want you to describe to the group what you're up to, because it sounds like maybe they don't see a lot of you during this time.
No, I think this won't come as a surprise to anyone, but Air is kind of a loner
What?
at heart, and I think she's kind of wrestling with this idea of like, is she gonna be committed to staying with you guys, or is she like gonna kind of go off and do her own thing? So she's kind of spending a little bit of time by herself, and she has also some her own internal conflicts that she's dealing with. So she spends most of her break time alone, wrestling with her thoughts and her newfound purpose. She's now, I think, kind of solidifying her support of the organization, and maybe actually this is like down the road we can play with the idea of maybe it's like not so much support of the organization and more of a destroying the blades, and maybe those things align right now, but maybe they don't later on. But mostly what she's doing is trying to gain her abilities and do odd jobs, mostly like infiltration, kind of one-off jobs that are kind of outside the organization, maybe some for the organization, some outside the organization. But most importantly, what she's trying to do is try to break her bind with this box and this patron, with maybe limited success. And that's kind of like what she's been doing. Did you envision anything else?
No, that's a good setup. So you all see Air from time to time, because, as you said, Air is running some jobs for the Yokogawa, and so it's not like the whole summer goes by and you never encounter each other. There are still probably moments of camaraderie, maybe a couple of collaborative errands or missions under Aquataru's guidance, or the occasional morning calisthenics session with Potom or something like that. I'm guessing there are moments where Air gets dragged along by the aggressive warmth of Pando or something like that, right? Gets pulled into the mix. But by and large over the summer, Air runs jobs. She runs jobs for the Yokogawa, for Nell, for Chetney, for Rudo Zenta, and a whole bunch of others that have known her over the years, or who don't know her. I think there's almost a bit of a feverish zeal here, or a feverish energy for Air of needing. I think Air actually has a bit of a sense that her time in Chukip is limited, and is trying to squeeze as much blood out of this stone as she can. And so almost every night she's working the shady alcoves and the back streets of Chukip, closing deals or sometimes clarifying the rules of the underground for those who need a reminder. And the money flows differently than it used to, because she's got newfound capabilities that allow her to craft almost supernatural reputation among the rabble that she used to run with. She's getting in and out of places she couldn't before, showing up unannounced. She's got an edge to her that Maybe she didn't before. But when she returns to the ostensible piece of her room and cot in the safe house, that's where a different battle begins. Because each night, early in the summer, she pulls out a small note that she keeps tucked away where nobody can see it. A note with a request or maybe a demand. And its imperative nags at her, but she has set her mind to resist. She's not going to run this covert errand. She's not going to do the bidding of the box this time. 3 weeks go by without any action taken on that request. And that's when the rest of you start to notice something's off. The dark rings under Air's eyes become noticeable to you, even against her already dusky skin. Pando maybe asks at one point, "Are you sleeping okay?" But Air can't actually even answer clearly. Has she slept? All she can really recall are the dreams. They're so vivid, and yet so hard to recall with clarity in the light of day. Her mother's there sometimes, speaking to her, but not alive. Maybe from beyond the veil? She's burdened, that's a clear memory, weighted down by massive, what feel like chains, trying to take steps forward but getting dragged back a little at a time. And there's one other element from the dreams that comes to mind, which is a laugh. Not a cackle, but like almost a derisive snicker. Like the strong implication being how adorable for you to struggle against these chains. Cute. It's a female voice. A little grainy. The exhaustion builds with each passing night over the course of those weeks until about a month later it catches up to Air. She slips up at a critical moment. A mark that she's been chasing bolts when she confronts him and places her demand, and he slips past her before she can react. This should never have happened, but her wits and her legs are lethargic, muddy. He escapes and forces Air to go back and deliver disappointment to the client and return home empty-handed. And that night, staring at her bunk in the safe house, preparing herself for another night of dreams and no rest, she can't anymore. And she gives in, clutches the note to her chest, and promises out loud to act. And sweet oblivion greets her for the first time in a month. And when she awakens, 18 hours later, she sets to work gathering dirt on House Ito. It takes about 48 hours to come up with something good. One of the many sons of House Ito has had repeated dalliances with servants of another race. It doesn't take long to acquire some bonded witnesses, put together some statements, receipts and evidence. And all of that gets packaged up in a little bundle of silk. The box grows to accommodate it. You settle it inside, and with a little buzzing warmth, the packet disappears. It takes you 3 days to recover. Mechanically, just so you know, Air reached level 3 of exhaustion.
Oh, wow.
2 levels away from death.
Yeah.
The rest of you notice, the fallout you see is Air does not leave her bed for 3 or 4 days, other than to get up and maybe drink a little broth. And eventually she recovers, sets back to work, rebuilds her reputation in the underworld, and accumulates a sizable savings. Air, you can add to your inventory 1,700 gold pieces.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Dang.
Well, won't have it for very long. Don't get too impressed.
I mean, it was good hard work done well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the financial equivalent is of a custom feat, but it wasn't going to be a small number. So
Sure.
Before we zoom back out and jump into the story again, are there any little things that you all want to do or say related to this downtime? I'll just preface this by saying a thing's about to happen. So
Oh.
before a thing happens,
Yeah.
is there anything else you all want to discuss, questions you want to ask, things you want to say, oh yeah, by the way, I did this, I bought a healing potion, or blah, blah, blah. Like, we're about to jump right back into the flow of time.
So I think before this, I've just kind of always we were on the go, and so I always kind of thought of the exocomp as like just kind of a mismatch of pieces strung together. That Potom, I mean, in the evenings, just was always kind of tinkering with, making little adjustments and stuff. But like, it was a creation of scrap pieces that were thrown together on the fly. But now that we have been sitting around for 3 months, you all notice the exocomp has taken kind of a more finished look. Intentional pieces put together with a skin over it. I always guess I kind of thought of it as the basis of a chair with a trunk in it.
Yeah.
A couple of different, like a chair. Then it's got a trunk in the back, or a cabinet that you can open up, and there's all sorts of stuff, and then like a trunk in the base. But now it is definitely, I mean, has that sort of like finished chair look. Everything, all the pieces match. Like it was intentionally put together. He rebranded the exocomp basically. The Mark II.
Okay. I like it.
That's fine.
You can go.
Freya really. I'm glad you remembered Tomto's name. Freya.
Tanbu.
Tombu. Tomto.
How?
Tonto?
Tomto.
Are we talking Johnny Depp or earlier Tom?
Yeah.
No. So she's setting him out during the day because she really wants to buy a shield.
Sure.
So just sending him out to just kind of see what kind of inventory is out there and what kind of shields there are.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a wide array you can get here. I mean, over the course of 3 months, you could even have something custom made for you in that amount of time. Mechanically in D&D, shields are pretty basic. If you've got a shield, it's +2 to your AC. There's not really extra fanciness. That's if it's as small as a buckler or like a full-on tower shield.
Oh, okay.
That's how it works
it's
mechanically.
Just this sort of same thing.
Yeah, so I think more flavor profile, like what do you think fits her style and how she approaches? I mean, up to this point, all we've seen is her two-handed swinging big things around.
Right. So if you're holding a shield, can I still use a two-handed weapon? I cannot use a two-handed weapon
That's
if
the
I'm
trade-off.
using my shield.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't totally know
She
that.
can't like put her shield on her back and like just turn
Yeah.
really fast with her weapons.
That would be an
Something
action to
acrobatic.
put my shield down.
So there are weapons called versatile. I think that's what I remember
Uh-huh.
that you can use as one-handed or two-handed.
Okay.
So you could choose a weapon like that, but when you use it one-handed, it does less damage.
Okay.
So that is the trade-off. But like you cannot use a greatsword while
right.
you are
Or
carrying a
or
shield.
my axe.
Right. Anything that starts with the
Okay,
word
so-
great is probably not shield compatible.
Okay. So give me just a minute about this.
Yeah.
We'll let other
Sure,
people go,
sure.
and let me just look at a few things here really quick.
Mhm.
I will say that for Pando, however the timing works, she intends to have like a final visit with her family and at the temple prior to anything that would take them physically away.
Mhm.
So just in the timing of that, I don't know if we're going to make more decisions that keep us here for a bit, but that will be Pando's. That is what Pando will do.
I would suggest that maybe it is gently suggested to you by Maktu and others in the party that kind of every time you get together with your family and the
Could
temple
be the final.
could be the final, and so you sort of approach it in that way.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, you all are fugitives
Mhm.
from the law right now, and though you haven't decided what your intentional next step will be if you had to disappear.
Yeah.
So you've laid the groundwork for
Mhm.
that. I think that's a good mindset there.
You could have a lance. Lances. I didn't realize lances were so cool. 1d12, and it's
Oh,
doesn't require 2 hands.
Oh snap!
that is pretty good.
But isn't like the
And now that you're a
effectiveness of
charger-
a lance, like using it
Oh.
with a horse?
Oh no, sorry. I'm reading the special rules about lances.
Oh, you have to use it
Okay,
with the
so
horse.
I'll wild
No.
shape into a horse, jump on my back.
It's you have disadvantage when you use a lance to attack a target within 5 feet of you.
Oh yeah, no, I.
Makes sense.
Oh, and
I'm
then no,
looking
you're
at-
right. And then lance requires 2 hands to wield while you aren't mounted. So
I'm kind of looking at
ah
a
darn,
battle
I saw that like stat. I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize that lances were so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's a.
in any fantasy movie you've ever seen, do you
Yeah.
ever see a guy off of a horse being like, "Now I've got this lance"?
Yeah,
There's like halberds
Yeah.
and stuff.
I mean,
Yeah,
I,
and pole arms are cool.
it's
Yeah,
just kind of like
polearms.
weighing it, because if I get like a battle axe that's a 1d10, as opposed to like my 1d12 plus 4, for
Well,
my
still,
two-handed.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
actually,
still-
I believe a battle axe is only 1d10 if you're using it two-handed.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Oh,
actually
you still get the
versatile.
you still get
it's
the plus
actually
4.
1d8 if you're
interesting.
using it with a shield.
Okay.
Oh
s-
right, for
yeah.
for slashing. Okay.
Well, the only thing that changes is the dice. You still get your bonus to it.
So
I
yours-
still get my bonus to it.
The strength.
Oh yeah, you still
Yeah.
get your strength bonus.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, okay. Oh okay. Yeah, so I still have the strength bonus. It bump up my armor class by 2, also. So that actually, that take me to with the ring takes me to an armor class of 15 at least. So that's actually pretty high.
I mean, this is the mechanical trade-offs, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
No, thank you for letting me talk
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
it since I'm so new.
because traditionally the barbarian is the like wade into the middle of the
Yeah.
melee,
Mhm.
take whatever hits you gotta take,
Yeah.
bleed all over the place, but cut people down left and
Yeah.
right. But there's lots of ways to play this, right? So
Yeah.
like Totem of the Bear is built around the idea that let him hit me,
Yeah.
right? Because everything's half damage, so I'm just the damage sponge here, and so some people play that as like then let me not worry about defense at all and focus on doing as much damage as I can, right?
Mhm.
Defense, best offense, or best defense is good offense,
Mhm.
kind of a model. But you could do it the other direction too, like if you've got a decent armor class and your bear totem,
Mhm.
I'm not hitting you very often, and even when I do, I'm barely doing
Yeah.
damage. Then you're sort of the model of I never go down.
Right.
But the trade-off is now you're not hurting people as much.
I also with the charger though I do have a +5 damage if I come at them from 10 feet straight on.
Yeah.
So I do have that also. So yeah, I think
I was just gonna
Just
say
a
my only
bowling ball model.
yeah.
my only comment is you kind of have to play with the cards you're dealt, and I feel like you had like a couple unfortunate health rolls.
Yes.
So I don't think it's crazy
yeah.
Yeah.
to bump your AC if that's.
Yeah. I would feel better bumping my AC. So I guess I'm looking for a battle axe and a shield.
Okay. Yeah, easily acquired,
Uh-huh.
unless you're looking for something
Oh,
unusual.
we were talking stylistically. What do I want it to look like?
Yeah. So if mechanically you're buying a basic battle axe and
Uh-huh.
a basic shield,
Yeah.
that's that's not hard to find. If you're looking for something magical or master crafted or something that would have a mechanical advantage, like a +1 kind of a deal,
Pretty and shiny.
then it
Yeah, get the Gucci shit.
then you need then you're gonna need some money because those don't come cheap.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for you're looking to just swap out your kit,
Yeah.
that's doable, and it's just a flavor conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
When people swap their weapons, do they get money for selling their old weapons?
Almost negligible.
Okay.
So like any used equipment, unless it's mastercrafted or magical, is considered to be not in very good shape.
Sure.
So think about the exchange rate, unless you have a very friendly shopkeep, is similar to like when you'd go to the college bookstore with your books at the end of the semester and be like,
$10 for.
I paid $275 for
Great,
this.
we'll
What will you give me?
$17.
And they're like, here's
Right.
$15.
Right.
Yeah.
That's generally
Sweet, I
how
can buy
it
a
works.
6-pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better than nothing, I guess.
Isn't there like a feat or something? Maybe again, I have a long history of conflating Pathfinder feats with D&D feats, but I swear there's like a feat that's like you get a bonus to
That could be.
trade-ins or something. Yeah, or like
Yeah.
value.
I haven't
value,
dug
yeah.
deep into the feats list, but almost certainly,
Something
like
like
there's
that, yeah.
feats that do just about everything.
Oh, or maybe it's a background or something. But yeah, there's something like that.
Mhm.
I have a more air stuff.
Okay,
Before we-
so
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
if you
Can I
want to
just
buy
think
a
for a moment.
yeah, but I'll just tell you, if
Okay.
you want to buy a battle axe and a shield,
Mhm.
you're going to lay out 15 gold pieces
Oh, okay.
for both. If you want something fancy,
Yeah.
be prepared to spend 10 to 50 times that.
Okay.
But that's the ballpark. All right, Air, what about you?
Well, Air now knowing that she has this money, is looking to commission a half plate.
Okay.
And it looks, and she's actually interestingly, and kind of to the blacksmith's. I assume she goes back to her dung buddy.
Sure.
Confusion at first is that her request is actually to make it very plain looking on the outside,
Okay.
very unassuming, which is probably the opposite of what he normally gets when he has custom requests. But on the inside of the breastplate, around at the where your heart would be located, she's gonna actually have this incredibly intricate and beautifully designed engraving of her mother, and design, yeah, and like accompanying floral designs and stuff, kind of radiating out from where your heart would be
Little
on the
soft
inside
spot
though,
in
so you
the
can't see it
air.
from the outside.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Let's see.
It's gonna be an expensive piece of armor.
Good thing you made all that money this summer.
Yeah, gone immediately.
Did make a lot of money. Yeah. So half plate is what we're looking for. You said
Mm-hmm. The good stuff.
the good stuff.
Going all in.
So for custom half plate, normally you would be this smith would be
No precious metals.
would be charging an upcharge for the customization, but
Yeah.
because of your existing relationship and the fact that he is thrilled right now that he's still working through this
It's
dung
now.
and has finished some projects he's really excited about, has new customers from the
Mhm.
Noble District, like things are looking up because of this. He offers this custom work for you at the base price, so it'll be 750 gold pieces
Oof, man.
for a
Steel.
half plate.
Finally, it was worthwhile with this this dung purchase.
Yeah, it paid off. We really hung in there for the dung,
Yeah.
so it paid off. Okay, so you've got half plate.
Okay.
You going battle axe
You know,
and shield, or what's
yeah,
the game?
Yeah, well, could I look around? Could I
Get some
around
few
for
different
something
some
called
price.
a Spellguard shield.
Oh.
Spellguard shield.
Yeah, it's a
huh?
Spellguard shield. So what it does is it's an excellent shield for anyone having to face down a mage or other spellcaster.
Mm.
The Spellguard shield's magic neutralize offensive magic, granting you advantage on saving throws versus spells and other magical effects, as well as giving disadvantage to spell attacks made against you.
And that sounds really nice. Here, here's how you put some feelers out,
Okay.
and and what you learn is that a shield like this there isn't one in Chukip.
Mhm.
So to acquire something like this, you would either need to order it from the capital
Mhm.
and have it shipped here, or you would have to engage someone in the creation of it here. The only way to do that here in Chukip would be to have one of the high-end smithies produce the template for the shield, basically a shield that is primed to receive enchantment, and then to engage the services of an enchanter to do this. To make that happen will take several months. So the building of the shield itself, probably a month. The enchantment, another couple months. This is something you would have had to start at the very beginning of the summer. And the total price would probably end up anywhere from 25 to 35,000 gold pieces.
That's a lot.
Just a
okay,
just a
all
little
right,
bit.
I'll just have the $15 one.
Yeah. Once you get a magic, it just kind of
No, I know.
jacks up the price.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, could I have something crafted for me that would have the potential to be able to be enchanted in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
and,
could,
And is that? Do I have enough time to do that?
yeah.
That would still function as a shield, but I can up it. That's
Yeah, let's see.
I named my armor Mother's Embrace.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's cute. I like that. Okay, so here's what you can do. What you would be paying for here is a masterworked shield.
okay.
So basically, a shield that is of the highest quality materials,
Mhm.
put together by a master and inlaid with the templated runes that would allow an enchanter to stick an enchantment to it
Mhm.
later. That shield will cost you 160 gold pieces.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Flush with cash.
I do have some. And then just a regular battle axe.
That's 15 gold.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad trade-off at all. Like from a pure math perspective,
Mhm.
I was like trying to think of it. I think for like a great sword, that's 2d6. So that's an average of 6 damage per swing,
Yeah,
and then compare that to a 1d8 longsword or battle axe or whatever.
yeah,
That's 4.5. So you're even up 1.5 damage per swing
yeah.
to +2 AC.
Well, yeah,
Which
the
is
plus
big.
2 AC. Plus, I still have the +4 that goes onto that as my strength modifier,
Right, yeah.
and +5. So any melee attack I have, whatever I roll is a +9 on any melee attack. So, yeah, I think the AC. Yeah, I think it's worth it.
So when you take this shield,
Uh-huh.
you're going to add a shield to your inventory, and then all you need to do to make sure we remember that this is a master crafted shield
Uh-huh.
is click on it and in D&D Beyond, next to the name
Mm-hmm.
in the description, there's a little pencil icon. If you, or sorry, you can use that pencil icon to change the name of the item
Okay.
to Masterwork Shield or Mastercraft Shield or something like
Okay.
that. Or if you'd rather, there's a little down caret that says Customize,
Uh-huh.
and you can make your own name
Okay.
for it in there.
Okay.
But so you can customize it right within the inventory itself.
Just as a time check, it's 11:30,
Yeah.
and I know we have a hard stop at noon. And you brought that incredible dumpling soup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I'm just throwing
Yeah.
it out there.
You guys
'cause
want
we're at
let's
about
pause
30
and get some
minutes
soup?
left.
Let's do that. Let's pause.
Okay.
So, with all of our little details wrapped up from our downtime, we're going to jump back in late summer. So, careful management of this Hansa project has paid off. You have managed to pass this tracker through the portal, and over the course of many observations and reports back from Hansa before he was disappeared, you have a little bit of information about where you suspect the other end of this portal lies. You have a high level of confidence that it is on the mainland, in a building more than 2 stories high, almost certainly in a major Minotaur city.
Oh, okay.
Those are the clues you've managed to gather from sounds, sights, smells, etc. This is 8 weeks of observation through very small interactions, but between Mach 2's insights and some of what Hansa has shared, and a couple of risky interactions that maybe push the envelope of the normal, you've managed to gather some of those details. You feel a high level of confidence that now, because of Potham's tracker, if you reach the mainland, you should be able to get a ping off of this thing, depending on where you make landfall. You can secure shipboard passage to the mainland, public shipboard passage to the mainland for 20 gold pieces each, or you can secure more discreet passage, leaving in secret from the sea caves for 100 gold pieces each. This is basically a smuggler's trawler, disguised as a shipping vessel.
Inflation has hit the smugglers too, it sounds like.
Yeah.
100 gold pieces.
You're paying for discretion there. So, while there's currently no urgency necessarily for you to depart, do you want to make plans for that and secure that passage in advance, or do you want to wait?
I think we should go discreetly
Yeah.
since we're wanted.
Okay, so spend 100 gold pieces each, please.
Easy come, easy go.
Easy come, easy go. Oops,
Uh,
I added 100 instead.
You have
I just keep getting more and more money.
near the end of the summer, you have this basically bolt plan ready. So this smuggler's trawler is going to be around for the next week while they engage some of the things that they need to engage in to keep, and they are essentially at your disposal for the next week, and are holding your money. You start to make plans to depart for the mainland. You talk to Mach 2 a bit, you tie up some loose ends, maybe with the family, run some final errands, and a night before you planned to depart, you are all in the safe house when there is suddenly a loud crashing noise. And you all whirl and look up from wherever you are positioned in this sort of oddly shaped big room. I mean, the safe house is basically, I don't know that we've described it a whole lot, but it's basically an kind of organic shaped cavern, natural cavern that is attached to the sewers. And so it's a pretty large room that has these little alcoves kind of carved out of it on the edges, which is where some of you sleep. It's where Wadi Wadi Hanzo's desk is in one of those, kind of set off to the side. There are weapons racks and things like that, equipment shelving in some of these alcoves. But most of the middle of this large room is occupied by sort of communal tables, a sort of planning table where you gather around, like a conference table kind of a vibe. And Moktu is sitting at that sort of conference table when this happens. So this loud bang is accompanied by sort of a burst of smoke and a flash of light, and what's as closest to the main entrance of the hideout breaches, and the doors fly inwards, separating slightly from the hinges, and leaping into the room, you see two heavily armed elves. They are reminiscent of blades, but their armor is far superior to any blades you've ever seen, even captains or officers. It is an ebony black, matte, full plate armor that is in the sort of dim light of the safe house, just subtly glowing. And their helms are interesting in that they don't match the armor itself. They look almost like an incredibly fine chain, but there's no eye holes, or it's not a chainmail. What do you call it? Coif.
Yeah.
It's like a full-on mask that completely conceals, but it's just this intricate, very fine mesh chain.
Almost fabric looking. Yeah.
Almost fabric looking, but it's clearly metal. Also black, but just almost distressing in how it offsets from this heavy plate that these two elves are wearing. The other thing that's a little distressing is that as they leap in, they're not moving like people in heavy plate. They are moving; they're light on their feet as they sort of slide into the room, and Moktu is instantly on alert. He leaps into the breach, basically positioning his body between these two elves that have moved into the room and the smashed door behind them, positioning himself between them and all of you. Tanbu is also here in the room, by the way. And as he leaps up, he pulls his sword, his katana, and drops into a ready stance. And you see the now very familiar sort of confidence. Moktu doesn't have a swagger when he fights, but there's a calm, focused confidence that comes over him, and you've seen it over and over again in your sparring sessions. You see him drop into that confident stance until he notices the rampant griffin emblazoned on the over the heart of this armor on these two people. And he screams, almost panicked sounding, over his shoulder at all of you. "Claws! Burn it all and save yourselves!" Tanbu reacts immediately to this. This sounds like a command that he has been prepped for in the past. This "burn it all" phrase moves him into action instantly. And he leaps towards Wadi Wadi Hanzo's desk, grabs a lamp that is sitting, there's an oil lamp on top of the desk, and he pulls one of the drawers open and smashes the lamp down into the drawer, and much faster than it should, the entire desk erupts into flame. Very, very hot, very, very bright flame. This desk has been prepped to torch whatever evidence lies inside. And as that is happening, one of these elite warriors steps forward with his sword raised towards Maktu, nearly an identical blade to the one that Maktu is carrying, a slender-bladed katana, and raises his sword in sort of almost a formal greeting, like a sparring match about to begin. The other hangs back and sort of almost insolent, casually leans against the wall like he's going to watch something fun. You can't see his face, but the stance is clearly dismissive of what is about to happen. Now, you've had 3 months to observe the artful discipline of Maktu's swordsmanship. You've seen his blade dance in the morning. You've felt the sting of his practice stick in sparring sessions. After 3 months, none of you has ever managed to land even a single touch on his person, even Freya. He has been an impenetrable wall of skill. But in the very first exchange of blows, the impossible is suddenly obvious. They clash almost faster than you can follow, the blades whistling past each other. And then there's a pause, and Maktu turns back towards his opponent, and you see a thin red line appear on his right shoulder that suddenly begins gushing blood. And you see him stagger just a bit as he puts his hand up to try to staunch the flow. His leathers split, and muscle underneath split down to the bone, you can see at a glance. He takes one risky look over his shoulder at you all one more time, and his eyes, though panicked, reinforce as he issues a command to you. Fly, you fools. It is obvious to all of you that these elite soldiers are beyond your ability. You flee through the secret entrance at the back of the cavern, the one that in the past has led you outside the walls of the city. Tanbu is already racing ahead of you. He moved as soon as the burn was confirmed. The last glimpse you get from within the safe house is the second blade drawing his sword and moving to try to intercept you, and Maktu whirling to throw his blade in the path of that soldier. And as you hear the metal clashes of swords back and forth echoing down the cavern behind you, the last thing you hear is Maktu screaming a battle cry. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this well. Let's see. The battle cry you hear is Yokoso Ikoto, Futari Nuochi Daisho Ninaru, which you know, and you all picked up a fair amount of Elvish at this point, but this is an older dialect that is often spoken in the capital. Essentially what he yells is, "Welcome, cousins. Become the price for 2 lives owed." You run for your lives. Maktu holds off these attackers long enough that at the very least you're able to duck into the sewers, make some moves, conceal your tracks. But it's obvious to you that it is far more than just these 2 elite warriors who were sent to crush this cell. There are blades roaming the sewers, and you narrowly evade encounter with them once, twice, and even a third time. Eventually, you with Tanbu manage to slip out of the secret exit outside the walls of the city, and you race at a breakneck speed to the sea caves. You make it onto the smuggler's trawler, and your exhausted and panicked arrival helps encourage them that it's time to cast off right now, which they do under cover of dark night, raising black sailcloth as they slip out of the sea caves and take to the ocean. You are pursued, but manage to evade that pursuit long enough to make it out into the open sea. And after a short period of time, you find a lull where the captain of this trawler asks you where you're headed. What do you tell him?
Mainland?
Yeah.
Where else? I mean,
Yeah.
is there anywhere else to go? Yeah.
We could say
Guys?
something like Imperial City or something. We could
Oh,
go.
yeah.
We could go to a different place.
I'd
but we
say
could just go
mainland, but not.
the nearest port on the mainland or something.
Yeah, and not like the port, like a less obvious
Less-
one.
Not.
Well, and I guess I'll just consult my locator for a direction, and we can just head to a port in that direction.
You got it. So, the captain of this trawler pulls out an old chart that shows the nearby waters, and
Oh.
as you depart south out of the waters around Chukip, after some discussion and consulting your locator and reminding yourselves of the detail you acquired that this other end of this portal is likely in Minotaur territory, the captain suggests that the best place for you to head is the Ninkosh Reservoir, where you can make landing near the Minotaur vassal city of Nantong. While he can't guarantee that that's where you want to be, it is the most direct and safest way to get you to the mainland into the vassal territories controlled by the Minotaurs. Fun fact, this is the capital city up
Wasn't it?
here,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering, which you may at some point visit. But I've marked at least the current known landmarks that you have, and this map will evolve as we play if you move other places.
I should ask if that is what everybody has on their agenda. Is
Yeah.
to keep going after this.
Sure. You bet.
I mean, that's our current mission. You know, we don't really have anything else that's conflicting with that.
Well, then that is where you set sail. The trip to Saltmarsh Landing in the past took about a day and a half. To get to the reservoir and make landfall here will be a trip closer to 5 days because of the trade winds and the need for this trawler to move stealthily and avoid naval blade patrols. So when we start our next session, we will do so at sea. You will have a 5-day naval voyage ahead of you before you make landfall in a totally new territory. And so you'll have a little time to think about what that'll look like and to make some plans, but we'll wrap our session there for today.